A veto-proof majority of the Seattle City Council is in favor of defunding the police. One of the city council members has been marching with extremists to the homes of Seattle politicians, demanding they bend the knee and give in and end the police. Okay, defund. But now Seattle residents are speaking out, and they're quite perturbed, to say the least. Seattle residents slammed defund police as radical experiment during city budget meeting. City's police union said it has collected 20,000 signatures on a stop defunding petition. That's great. I'm glad there are many people in Seattle who are willing to say, we do not want to defund the police and we will put our names on this. Don't do it. Guess what? You're going to lose. You voted for these people. You voted in these city council people and the extremists, and they're going to defund the police. That's what's going to happen. And if you want to live in a place like that, do so with my blessing. I'm not going to. What do you expect me to do about it, right? It's a free country. You can do whatever you want. But don't expect me to stand up repeatedly over and over and over again when this keeps happening. You know it keeps happening, and the people around you keep voting for this stuff. Now, I can empathize. I mean, it would be rather shocking. I'd be really angry myself if all the people in my area started demanding the police department down the street got taken away. That would suck. I need the police, literally. Well, I'll tell you what. If it got to that point where people were attacking my local police department and people in my neighborhood were marching around chanting defund the police, I'd start looking for a new place to live. Now, to be completely honest, I live in New Jersey. The state's been horribly mismanaged with the governor joining protests, letting prisoners out of jail and then literally arresting small business owners. So I'm getting out of here anyway. And that's why I'm sorry. I can sympathize, but at a certain point, you need to leave the city. I know it may be difficult. Seattle, Portland, Minneapolis, these other cities that are facing some kind of weird defunding. I guess technically not Portland because they're sending in more police, which is kind of funny. But look, man, it may be difficult, but you can't just expect everyone to do things for you. This golden age cannot go on forever, where you think you can live peacefully in harmony with the deli down the street, going to get your fresh roast beef sandwich every morning. Eventually, hardship comes and you have to realize it. And it's a shame. I'm realizing it. I haven't been living in this house that long, and I'm already like, we have to leave. We have to start realizing that as much as we love the area, we love the people, our neighbors, the local businesses, we got really great restaurants we really love. Too bad. It's getting worse and worse, and we recognize, at least I do, it's time to leave before it gets worse than it already is. Now, if you live in one of these big cities, in fact, if you live in any big city, you probably need to start considering that you're going to take a loss and you need to move. You can hold out sitting in a city like Seattle saying it'll be fine, I'll weather this storm. That's fine if it's your choice. But for the 20,000 people saying stop defunding the police, first and foremost, my respect, you're standing up for what you believe in, and this may actually help to reverse this. Ultimately, however, I don't think it is. I see the trend sweeping across this country, and it's going well beyond just defunding the police. We're going to see riots. We're going to see weird November election stuff. It's already getting crazy. And with COVID, with the economy, I got to tell you, man, the last place you want to be is in a city. I've received tons of emails from people straight up saying they were comfortable. They got a new apartment in a city recently before all this happened, and now they're immediately fleeing. I've gotten emails from people who said they just got up and left their apartments and went to a family's home to stay there amid all of the rioting and the COVID crisis. And they've just left their apartment, basically. It's not a good thing. I'm not telling you what you should or shouldn't do. I'm just letting you know. That's what I'm hearing from people. And if you're going to be in a city where you feel they're conducting a radical experiment on you, you need to get away from these people because no one is standing up to them. Now, I know. The police are. And there's 20,000 signatures here. But how many people live in Seattle? How many of these people keep electing the same people? You may be a principled, rational liberal who wants to live in Seattle because it's not a very conservative place, the city itself. And I've lived there, but guess what? There are regular liberals who don't like what's going on. Hey, they're signing petitions, right? I don't think it'll be enough. You know why? There are too many people who don't pay attention, don't care, and just believe the hype. And they get their news from memes and they post it on Facebook, and it's the only access to information they have, and they're nuts. And they're thinking all the cops are evil stormtroopers, and they're going to keep voting for these people. And you will be trapped in the storm. I know it may not be possible for some people. So to all of those trapped in these cities, I feel for you. But like I said, man, I'm hearing from a lot of people who are just getting out. Let's talk about what's going on in Seattle, because it's bad. The police found like explosives and weapons. They were like being handed out by a van or something. Check the story out. Seattle residents slam defund the police as radical experiment. Hundreds of Seattle residents spoke up about proposals to defund the police during a city council budget meeting on Wednesday, according to reports. The council is considering a plan that could slash the budget of the city's police department by 50%, resulting in layoffs for hundreds of officers, all as Seattle deals with the coronavirus outbreak and frequent riots and other unrest since the May 25th death of George Floyd. While the defund the police effort was initially popular in the city, opponents of the plan have been growing more and more vocal. Defunding the police is a radical experiment that will hurt the vulnerable, one member of the public calling into the phone-in meeting told the council, according to Q13 Fox. In addition, the Seattle Police Officers Guild, the union representing the police, said it collected more than 20,000 signatures on a Stop Defunding petition, the station reported. But proponents of Defund the Police plan say it would be part of an effort to repair race relations in the city following years of excessive force against minorities and other claims of mistreatment. I'm going to stop you right there. This is the narrative. It doesn't matter what you need. They've got the narrative. You might be saying the Wall Street Journal said it's not true. It might not be true. It doesn't matter. Why would they take away your police? How does this make sense? Think about it for 1 second. People have made this point. If your doctors and your hospitals are ill-equipped to help people and thus people are turned away or mistreated, do you just say, shut the hospital down? If the fire department fails to put out a fire, do you say, shut the fire department down? No, you supply them. You fund them. In Chicago, they created 2 new units and crime has gone down. Funding the police works. Better training, better equipment, more units, more officers, lower stress. That actually seems to work. So why do they keep saying defund amid all of this? Why do they want to take away police from you? Because some people are having problems with police. It's because it's not about this narrative. They're lying. Nothing less than defunding will begin to heal the violence committed by police against Seattle's Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities, said another of the estimated 300 people who signed up to address the council in a process that took about 3 hours. Now, I want to point this out. About 300 people signed up. Is that the total? Another of the estimated 300 people who signed up to address the council in a process, blah, blah, blah. Seattle has been an epicenter of the rioting that has been seen in many cities across the U.S. The unrest there has included the famous CHOP or Chaz. The city, along with Portland, Oregon, Chicago, and other locations, has taken criticism from Trump and other Republicans who have portrayed Democratic leaders in the cities as enablers of the rioting and destruction rather than law enforcers who are dedicated to maintaining public safety. Yeah, and I'll tell you what, man. These riots, they're happening all over the place. Check this out. This is from Vice just the other day. Police arrested 120 anti-racism protesters in Omaha, and barely anyone's talking about it. Yep. And it's going to keep happening. Here's what's happening in Seattle. Criminal investigation launched into use of explosives during riot in Seattle's Capitol Hill Saturday. How do you still live there? I'm sorry, man. How do you? I briefly lived in Seattle. I don't know, man. Let me just say, some people have families and some people have jobs. Some people don't have savings. Many Americans live paycheck to paycheck, but it's time to sacrifice. It's time to start selling things and getting ready to get out. There comes a time where the peaceful golden era that we've been living in, well, it comes to an end, right? You can't always have this perfect, system. And we've been living really, really well for a long time. It's kind of incredible how awesome everything really is, before COVID, but people just wouldn't stop complaining. One of the things I've talked about in the past is that I think the reason people hate Trump so much is they have nothing else to complain about. It's true. There was a poll done by Gallup talking about what people cared about. And once Trump got elected, within the next couple of years, the biggest issue for people was Trump and the Republicans and Democrats. Before this, it was like the economy, jobs. When people were living really, really well, they had nothing to complain about, so they found something to complain about. But then look, COVID happened and now everything's kind of falling apart. I hate to say it, man, because I know a lot of people don't want to accept it. Sell your stuff. You can't, you don't want to. I guess you can stay in these cities where there'll be no police and mass rioting. And what do you think is going to happen come November? Take a look at this story from King 5. Chief Best said no arrests have been made yet, but assured we are going to follow up aggressively with the investigation. Take a look at these photos. Look at these things that are being found. Explosive, nails, commercial grade fireworks. They're finding mortars with nails pressed into them. I'm telling you, man, if you want to hang out while this violence escalates and they take your police away, then feel free to do it. It's a free country. You can do what you want. Maybe you know better than I do in these cities, but I'm just saying, man, I've seen a lot of what's going on. I've seen other countries dealing with this, and I see how these things turn out. Seattle Police Chief Carmen Best announced the department is launching a serious criminal investigation into the use of improvised explosives and other devices against officers and property during Saturday's riot that was declared a riot. Okay, it says protest, no, riot. The riot on July 25th remained peaceful until about a dozen people set fire to portable trailers and other equipment at a construction site next to the King County Youth Service Center. From there, the group continued to damage businesses and destroy property, including the Seattle Department's East Precinct on Capitol Hill. During a news conference Wednesday, Chief Best, joined Mayor Jenny Durkan, said several items were seized from a van that was following closely behind the destructive group, and people were seen pulling things out of it. From the van, detectives recovered items like baseball bats, improvised shields, pyrotechnic explosives, bear spray, pepper spray, stun guns, improvised spike strips designed to disable bike officers. I see, and you know what happens when one of these bike officers falls on a spike strip and another officer falls on top of the spike strip? They get impaled by the spike strip. I see no reason why someone would need to arm themselves with these at a peaceful protest. Good point, because it wasn't. It's violent insurrection, and it's going to get worse. The Democrats are advocating for this mail-in voting thing. Trump's now tweeting about it. I'll get to this in the next segment at 4 p.m. But we should not expect normalcy moving forward. For too long, we have lived year after year, decade after decade, with peace and prosperity. But we have forgotten that hard times existed, that war existed, that there was rationing and shortages, that people were drafted to go off to war. For too long, we have had peace and prosperity. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean people have forgotten what conflict and crisis really is like. I know because I've seen it. And I would go to these countries and come back here and see the complacency of people, the ignorance and the comfort and the entitlement, not from everybody, but from many people. And now we're seeing violent extremists with weapons. Now they're escalating appropriately. Many of these people are armed with rifles, like the guy in Austin who got shot and killed. We've already seen now in Eugene just last week with a guy in his truck and an Antifa guy both pointing handguns at each other. Where do you think this goes? Carmen Best says, I don't understand. I see no reason why a peaceful protester would have these weapons. Because they're not peaceful protests, and they never were. It's propagandistic warfare. It's fourth generational warfare. They only act like peaceful protests to take advantage of our goodwill. And we have to respect that. We do. It's in the First Amendment. But they're carrying these weapons so that at a moment's notice, they can become a violent insurrectionary riot. That's what their plan really is. And, you see these people in Portland just allowing them to do it. You have to wonder, don't you? A total of 59 officers were injured during Saturday's riot on Capitol Hill. Chief Best said no arrests have been made yet regarding the particular investigation, but assured we are going to follow up aggressively with the investigation. Mayor Durkan condemned the acts of violence committed against officers and property in Seattle on Saturday. Acts of destruction, violence, and hateful speech, really. None of that gets us where we need to be. It's not just a distraction. It undermines the central message and the actions we want to take as a city, said Mayor Durkan. Well, I'll tell you what, man. As I often do, it is happening in other cities. It will continue to happen. Police arrested 100 anti-racism protesters in Omaha. Police officers wearing riot gear corralled anti-racism protesters in Omaha, Nebraska onto a highway overpass over the weekend, blocked both exits, and fired pepper balls into the crowd. Approximately 120 protesters were then zip-tied and arrested. Okay, it's happening in Omaha now. I've been to Omaha once. They have great steaks, apparently, and some beef jerky. I don't know a whole lot about it other than it's pretty flat. Big place in the middle of nowhere, I guess. Well, big place relatively. But even they're having mass protests. They call it a protest. I don't know what happened, okay? But the police, they're rounding up these people. They're arresting them. They say they were taken to Douglas County Correctional Center, where they told Vice News they were routinely denied water and bathroom. Oh, you know what? I don't want to hear that. Look, man, if you've ever been arrested, you understand. They hold you for some time, and often you're not going to get special favors. Saturday night's protests in Omaha, one of many nationwide that ended in arrests and brutality this weekend, were held in solidarity with Portland's uprising. They're calling Portland an uprising straight up. Okay? Let this be made very, very clear to all of you. Vice News has said Portland uprising, not protest, not riot, uprising. An uprising is a reference to political action. That's it. It's a political movement rising up, getting violent. It's an uprising. And they also demanded justice for James Scurlock, a young black man who was fatally shot by a white bar owner in Omaha while protesting George Floyd's death in May. The bar owner, Jacob Gardner, was not charged because the Douglas County Attorney's Office said he had acted in self-defense during the fight, and there's video evidence of it. I don't know if it can be made any more clear to all of you what's happening in this country. You know, when people post jokes and memes saying things like I'm, overreacting, and that's fine. Feel free. You can criticize me all you want. That's whatever. But I think I'm right. You know why? I warned about this. I said this would happen. It seems like it's often enough I say something is going to happen, and then unfortunately it does. Now, to be fair, I don't make like hard predictions like on the 13th night, at the 13th hour of the 13th month, a giant demon will emerge from the shadows with a gun and shoot, John Smith. That's a very, very weird and specific. It's a joke, by the way. It's a Simpson reference for those that don't get it. But what I say is that there will be escalation. And what I did say is that in this instance in Omaha, where the guy was defending himself, you will see them riot for this guy next. The McCloskeys in St. Louis, defending their property. They're being criminally charged. They're the bad guys. Garrett Foster in Austin, who was armed with a rifle and approached a vehicle, was shot and killed, is heralded as a martyr. You see what that means? If they have guns, they're heroes. If you bring out guns, you're evil and must be charged and arrested. It is absolutely an ideological attack. Those who are with the cult will be protected. And we can see it here. So this guy comes out, and apparently he gets shoved to the ground, and then he pulls out a gun, and I don't remember the full details, but he fired like a warning shot or something. The guy attacked him. He reached around and shot the guy. It was self-defense. He was not charged. There is video of it. He was attacked. His dad was shoved. He was shoved. They attacked him. Two guys ran off. One guy jumped on top of him, and he fired in self-defense. They're now rioting because of that, demanding justice. They don't want justice. They want retribution for their ideology. And that means they will trick all of these dumb, well-to-do progressives and liberals to vote for politicians who will strip them of their police like they're doing in Seattle. And when the citizenry who are paying attention come out and say, stop, this is ridiculous. Regular people and regular liberals are drowning in propaganda from fake news, desperate to get one last click before the whole system explodes. So they'll sell you down the river and embolden these extremists. But more importantly, some of these extremists, many of them, in fact, work at these news organizations and are lying on purpose to empower their extremists. There's a decent amount. They're all over the place. Many of them work in media. They're influential, and they're pushing their fringe, insane ideology. It goes beyond their ideology. It's a cult. If you are on their side, you'll be okay. If you're not, they'll arrest you. If a group of people were marching and, say, a Black Lives Matter protester on their property pulled out a gun and said, stay off my property, they'd celebrate it. They'd say, hey, it's a good thing. Absolutely. But when it's the McCloskeys, it's a bad thing. When this man defends himself while he's being attacked, it's a bad thing. When a regular citizen defends themselves, they say, you're evil. And that's what we've seen now on multiple occasions. It's only a matter of time, if you stay in these cities, that they will come to your door and accuse you of being the bad guy. It's like the old saying, first they came for the communists and the trade unionists. You know how it goes. It's real. They will show up to your house the same as they did the McCloskeys. They will surround your car with guns, like in Provo, where they shot the driver. And that guy, they defend the guy who shot the driver. And if you defend yourself, they will call for your head. They will come out in massive numbers And when the police arrest these people, they will say the police are the bad guys. Why? Because the police are stopping their cult. That's why they stand down in Portland. That's why the Seattle City Council has a veto-proof majority that wants to defund the police. And that's why they're going to keep coming out, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. They go on to talk about what happened in Omaha. I'm not super concerned, but it's been happening all over. Here's an angle of Seattle, police pepper spraying a journalist and shoving him. You know what, man? We're getting to this point where with something, Trump tweeted this morning about delaying the election. Everyone's talking about whether he can or cannot do it. I'm going to tell you right now, we are reaching an extreme moment in American history. There have been times where rights have been suspended and people just stop caring. And I think we're getting close to this. I do. There's stories about like Black Lives Matter protesters who have come to small towns and been attacked and chased out. They don't care about what your rights are. They don't want you bringing that chaos to their city, to their towns. Now, I'm in favor of the First Amendment. Somebody wants to march around with a sign, so be it. But these smaller towns don't care. Not in my backyard, they'll say. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen come November? But I'll tell you what at least might happen. Donald Trump tweeted this morning, delay the election until we can secure things, ? And all of a sudden everyone's screaming he can't do it. Well, the next video is coming up at 4 p.m. over at timcast.net. For those listening on the podcast, you've already heard this, but stick around. I will see you over there again, timcast.net at 4 p.m. Let's talk about the bigger picture. Thanks for hanging out.